As the chapter for Warlords of Draenor has come to a close, many have begun speculating on what's coming next. Personally, I've taken the time to reflect on Warlords of Draenor. Not the expansion, but the Warlords themselves. I mean, rather than going on about garrisons and Apexis crystals and the no-flying debacle, let's take a few minutes and talk about my favorite thing about Warlords of Draenor. The story. In particular, the characters. When it comes to characters, this expansion delivered, because it gave us so many. But in the spirit of the expansion's title, rather than focusing on all the characters, let's take a look at the Warlords themselves. How did their stories pan out? And if you haven't figured it out yet, this video is going to have massive spoilers everywhere. I mean, if this video were food, it would be 3-week-old egg salad, okay? So, fair warning. First, let's take a look at Garrosh Hellscream. Even though he wasn't an original warlord, he was a key figure in bringing them together, and he did become war chief of the Warsong clan. So technically, he was a warlord. Garrosh is the son of Garrosh Hellscream. The first time we ever met him was in the Burning Crusade, out in the Grand. He was pretty discouraged about his father's legacy, and he was pretty much ready to give up on everything, but Thrall took him under his wing, and he joined the Horde. After this, he journeyed to Northrend and led the Horde army in the war against the Scourge. His shame quickly grew into confidence and boldness, and he didn't exactly hide his hatred for the Alliance. But he did maintain his focus on fighting the Scourge, and this did earn him a lot of respect in the Horde. Eventually, he was appointed war chief by Thrall when Thrall was moving on to become a more powerful shaman. He was a little reluctant at first, but with a little bit of coaxing and reassurance that he would be surrounded by wise orcs and other faction leaders to help him, he took the job. Garrosh was stubborn and harsh and easily manipulated, which led to him killing Karen Bloodhoof in a duel. He continued to gain favor with the orcs, but not so much with the other factions. But he did maintain a sense of honor, even to his enemies, and he did see value in the other races of the Horde. Garrosh was shaping up to be a really cool anti-hero, which is something that I believe the Warcraft universe was lacking. He was tough and he was flawed, but he was still a good guy. He had his beliefs and his morals, and he wasn't afraid to tell people like it was.
Watch your clever mouth, bitch!
This was the Garrosh Hellscream that I liked. He wasn't a cookie-cutter babyface like Thrall. He was a true anti-hero, a gray character, that just so happened to be on the right side. Unfortunately, this changed. His sense of honor went out the window as xenophobia set in. The writing was on the wall for Garrosh the day he dropped that mana bomb on Theramore. And by the end of Mists of Pandaria, he was a full-fledged villain, and we had to take him out. At this point, Garrosh becomes nothing more than a plot device. He escapes from captivity, journeys to alternate Draenor, convinces Grom to not drink the demon blood, and unite the other clans to create the Iron Horde. Grom then promotes Garrosh to War Chief of the Warsong clan as Grom promotes himself to War Chief of the Iron Horde. The next time we see him is in the Grand, where he faces off against Thrall for their final duel. Thrall, of course, kills Garrosh, and this is where his story comes to an end. Overall, I feel like Garrosh had a great story in World of Warcraft, and although I do miss the anti-hero Garrosh from Cataclysm, I'm pretty satisfied with how they used Garrosh. Garrosh had his day in the sun in Siege of Orgrimmar, so we didn't need to fight him again. He was a really good plot device in Warlords, and his final showdown with Thrall was fantastic. That cinematic was one of my favorites the game has ever produced. Seeing Garrosh's emotions there at the end come to the surface was really touching. The way he felt about Thrall, about being War Chief, and how he really felt like he was doing the right thing was really sad.
You made me War Chief! You left me to pick up your pieces! You failed me!
And it even generated some controversy towards Thrall. You know, had Thrall failed at making Garrosh War Chief and pushing that on him, and had Thrall also violated his own honor by violating the rules of Mont Garra by using elemental shaman magic. That is a debate that continues in the community to this day.
My power is all around you.
Garrosh was a fantastic character. I loved him when he was an anti-hero, and I loved hating him when he was a villain. And as his story came to an end, I felt sorry for him. Ner Zhul, Warlord of the Shadowmoon clan. In our reality, Ner Zhul eventually became the spirit of the Lich King, but in this alternate timeline, he was still Ner Zhul the Orc Shaman. He kinda got bullied into joining the Iron Horde at first, but eventually his lust for power took over, and he became more loyal to them. Ner Zhul and the Shadowmoon clan had been living peacefully with the Draenei of Karabor up until now, but in order to prove his worth to the Iron Horde, he began to wage war against them. His plan was to use the Dark Star to wipe out the Alliance and the Draenei, allowing him to take full control of Shadowmoon Valley. His plan would eventually fail thanks to the noble sacrifice of the Prophet Velen. After being defeated, Ner Zhul feared the wrath of Hellscream, so he and his best shaman retreated to the Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. There he became a final boss, and he was taken out by us. Overall, I believe Ner Zhul was used pretty well in Warlords of Draenor. He was the antagonist of an entire zone and a dungeon. The legacy of the Lich King is way too strong for him to have another story and be separated from that role. So in my book, allowing him to be a minor character so that other characters can have a turn was a good move. Kargoth Bladefist. He became the warlord of the Shattered Hand clan. Originally, Kargoth was a slave to the ogres and he was forced to fight in the ogre arenas. He was told that if he could slay 100 orcs in the arena, he would be set free. He accomplished this, but he was not set free. Chained up and left to die below the arena, Kargoth found the strength to sever his own hand, releasing the chain that bound him. Many other orcs followed suit. Together, they slaughtered their former ogre masters and formed the Shattered Hand clan. Sometime after this, Kargoth and his clan joined the Iron Horde and ruled over most of the Spires of Iraq. Kargoth made a few appearances here and there, but he never really did anything significant until we encountered him in Hymal. Kargoth, one of the Warlords of Draenor, was the very first boss of the very first raid of the expansion, and ironically we're fighting him in an ogre arena, where we kill him. This never really set right for me. The only explanation I got for this was that the Iron Horde and the Gorian Empire, which were the ogres of Hymal, had a very shaky alliance. Kargoth was acting as an ambassador, and he was willing to prove himself and the Iron Horde to the ogres. Unfortunately, he failed when we killed him. But the thing is, these two armies were just at war. The Iron Horde was invading Hymal, and eventually they both realized that it was counterproductive to fight each other. It was just taking too much effort. So the ogres agreed to align themselves with the Iron Horde. But the Iron Horde still had the upper hand, so the ogres were joining the Iron Horde. There was no reason for the Iron Horde to prove themselves to the ogres since they were currently the superior army. Apparently Kargoth has Stockholm Syndrome, because he's right back in the place that he fought so hard to get out of, fighting for the same people that once enslaved him. There are explanations for it, I just think they're lame, this story makes no sense to me, and I believe that Kargoth was a wasted character. Blackhand was the warlord of the Blackrock clan and he ruled over Gorgrond. In our timeline, Blackhand was the very first war chief of the Horde and he served as Gul'Dan's puppet. Eventually, he was killed off by Orgrim Doomhammer, who replaced him as war chief. However, in this alternate timeline, he was the very first warlord to join Grom to form the Iron Horde. Garrosh gave him weapon schematics which he would produce, making his clan basically the backbone and strength of the Iron Horde. We eventually ran into him in Talador and found out how powerful he actually was. He was able to take down Orgrim Doomhammer and Murad, and would have likely killed off Yrel, Durotan, and possibly us if Khadgar hadn't intervened and saved us. Eventually, we'd hunt him down and kill him off in his own foundry. Blackhand was the final boss of the second raid and basically served as the primary antagonist of the first half of the expansion. In my opinion, Blackhand was one of the best villains of the expansion. Blizzard did a good job selling him as a very powerful character, and we saw how important he was considering that after we killed him, the Iron Horde basically crumbled. And his voice actor was one of the best I have ever heard in the game.
You will all die!
Kilrogg Deadeye was the leader of the Bleeding Hallow clan. They were basically the cult-like fanatics of the Iron Horde. Kilrogg performed a ritual where he sacrificed his own eye to see his future of how he would die. After seeing his vision, he killed his own father, who had also done the ritual by the way, became warlord of the Bleeding Hallow clan and joined the Iron Horde. Kilrogg never really did anything until he eventually betrayed Grom and the Iron Horde by drinking the blood of Manaroth and serving Gul'Dan. In his vision, he saw himself dying in battle surrounded by Horde and Alliance banners. I suppose this happened in Hellfire Citadel where we killed him. But this again doesn't make any sense. If Kilrogg could see the future and saw how he would die, why would he join the Iron Horde only to betray them later? I mean, he had to see his change in appearance, so he had to know that he was going to drink the demon blood. Did he just want to see how things were going to play out? Why didn't he try to change anything? Why didn't he warn Grom of what was coming? Similar to Kargoth, any explanation I can come up with just sounds lame. There just wasn't enough character development for these guys to really understand why they did what they did. It just seems like there are missing pieces to this story and it doesn't add up. Garrosh Hellscream was the original warlord of the Warsong clan and the leader of the Iron Horde. He formed the Iron Horde after being warned about the future by his son Garrosh. He refused to drink the demon blood, and together with the other clans, they fought back, slew Manoroth, and took over the majority of Draenor. They formed the Dark Portal, connected it to our world where they planned to invade. Of course, we fought back and eventually came to Draenor and chased Grom all the way back to Tanan Jungle. Grom made his appearances, but he never really did anything significant in the game. However, he was the one that started everything. He led the Iron Horde, and that makes him responsible for the attempted genocide of the Draenei and the invasion of our world. But eventually the tide turned, and after we had pretty much decimated the Iron Horde, Gul'Dan captured Grom and took over what was left. To make a long story short, we eventually rescue Grom in Hellfire Citadel, and he joins us for the final fight where we save the day. Suddenly, our biggest enemy is now our buddy, and he's raising Gorehowl in victory, pronouncing Draenor free, where he's being cheered by the very people that he was originally trying to kill. Personally, I like the fact that Grom is a good guy. I mean, he was basically portrayed as the hero in the cinematic. His never give up, never surrender, iron will attitude is commendable. But he was the original bad guy, and he is responsible for doing a lot of bad things, whether he was being influenced by Garrosh or not. Rather than seeing the evolution and metamorphosis of a character who redeems himself, we basically are given a guy who just switches sides because now the other side is winning. This is so contrary to the Grom from our timeline, who made the mistake of drinking the demon blood twice and eventually sacrificed his own life for the good of his people. That was a good redemption story. This is a mess, full of plot holes. Now, Grom's alive again, but his character makes no sense. He's clearly the victim of a rushed expansion where the story was messed up, just like Kilrogg, just like Kargoth. And lastly, we have Gul'Dan, who apparently was the true villain of the expansion. Basically, he got blindsided by the Iron Horde when they didn't drink the blood of Manoroth. They captured him so that they could use him to create the Dark Portal. We set him free so that we could destroy the Dark Portal. He was chased around by Khadgar for most of the expansion, but eventually he gained the upper hand and took control of the Iron Horde. He summoned the Burning Legion to Draenor and was even eventually able to summon Archimonde. But upon his defeat by us, Archimonde punished Gul'Dan by sending him into the Twisted Nether. It is teased that Gul'Dan is not dead and we will likely see him again. In the original story, Gul'Dan's death was pretty inconsequential even though he was able to influence things long after he was dead. But now a new Gul'Dan has returned to the story and he is still at large. So I am very interested to see how his story plays out, and unlike Grom, he doesn't have as many plot holes. And last but not least, we have the defiant Durotan, who never actually served the Iron Horde. Instead, he, along with his wife Draka and his Frostwolf clan, fought alongside us against them. There really isn't much to say about Durotan. He's just a really cool dude, and it was a pleasure to run around Draenor with him. Along with his wife Draka, Khadgar, Irel, and even Thrall, he's another hero. Overall, I think that Warlords of Draenor brought in a lot of cool characters, revitalizing and retconning some of the old ones back into the story. Unfortunately, this story, like a lot of other aspects to the game, was plagued by the shoddy rush job that was Warlords of Draenor. It's not that there haven't been plot holes in the lore before, but this time around there are just too many. I do want to see more from these characters, but unfortunately I just feel like there was a lot of lazy writing and lame explanations for things this time around. Warcraft has always been one of my favorite stories, but if this is a sign of things to come, then that will quickly change. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And if you found it informative, perhaps you'd like to inform your friends by sharing it with them. And don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see future videos on this channel. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day. This is TheKephas. Until next time.